We live, sadly, in a world where bullies and trolls can intrude far too easily into our daily lives. What was once confined to the classroom or the workplace can now reach much further, stretching its evil tentacles into our homes and personal spaces through screens and devices. I have personally experienced bullying in one form or another throughout the whole of my life, so I understand how deeply it can affect someone. I also realised when I decided to create this podcast, I was inevitably opening myself up to the trolls and the bullies as well. Thankfully, I am now in a place where their words and actions no longer have any power over me. They roll off like raindrops from relief. In many ways, my resilience has been essential, because putting myself out there has brought more than a few people crawling out from the shadows and from underneath their bridges. Some bullies appear in our lives disguised as friends. They can strike you at any point, and they will affect both adults and children alike. They, the bullies, are often extremely weak individuals craving attention. If anything, really, we should pity them. Imagine how empty their life has got to be for them to get their entertainment by abusing someone. Reaching this point in my life did not happen overnight. It has taken time, support, and a great deal of therapy. Bullying affected my physical health, but my mental health even more, in so many ways. It is important I say this clearly. Not all bullying is physical. In fact, a lot of it is psychological, and the impact from that can be profound. Mental health is something that affects every single one of us. At different points in our lives, we may struggle with anxiety, depression, trauma, or simply the weight of everything life throws at us. There is still far too much silence and stigma around mental health, but speaking about it openly can make a real difference. Your mental health can be affected by so many different things, bullying included. Looking after your mental health is just as important as looking after your physical health, and asking for help is not weakness, it is strength. I have struggled with my mental health because of the bullying I was subjected to. I am incredibly grateful that I reached out for help when I did, because honestly, I don't know if I would even be here right now had I not. It is also important to recognise that harm does not only come in the form of bullying. Some people listening right now may be experiencing domestic abuse, whether that is physical, emotional, psychological, financial, or through controlling behaviour. Abuse in the home can be incredibly isolating and frightening. It often happens behind closed doors where others cannot see it. If this is something you are going through, please know that none of it is your fault, and you deserve to be safe, respected, and supported. Knowing that you are worthy, that you are important, and that you are loved is vitally important. Anybody who makes you feel as though you are not is not a person who deserves space or time in your life. If you are struggling, please know that you are not alone, and that there is support available to you. There are people who will listen without judgment, people who can help you find your way forward. Even on the darkest of days, light may still be found. If you need support, please reach out. You can call the Samaritans on 116 123. The call will be free, confidential, and someone is available 24/7. If you are experiencing bullying, there is the National Bullying Helpline. This call again is free. You can reach them on 0300 323 0169. If you are experiencing domestic abuse, you can contact the National Domestic Abuse Helpline on 0808 2000 247. This service is also free, confidential, and available 24/7. If talking is uncomfortable for you, then you can text SHOUT, that's SHOUT, to 85258. Again, this will cost you nothing, and they have a 24/7 support line. I know that reaching out can feel hard, terrifying, and pointless. I understand that feeling. I felt that way too. But I promise you, help really is there, and I am proof that it can make the biggest difference. Don't be alone. Reach out. Take care of yourself and stay safe.
Roots run deep, petals flow. Fareham Florist pod. Hear the stories as they grow. Thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoy the show.
Hello, welcome back to Fareham Florist Pod, the place where floristry meets chaos, creativity, and occasionally sheer masochism. If you've even spent a day working with flowers, you'll know exactly what I mean. Floristry is a gorgeous craft, a soulful expression of art and emotion. Wrapped in thorn scratches, ribbon burns, soaked clothes, and the occasional feeling that you may, in fact, be losing your mind. I'm your host Sarah, owner of Fareham Florist, also known as Flowers by Moonstones, a small, independent and family-run business perched on the outskirts of a small town on the south coast of England called, yes, you've guessed it, Fareham. I live in a world filled with petals, personality and plenty of unexpected plot twists. Hello, lovely listeners. I'm briefly going to interrupt this episode. Forgive me, but I wish to speak to you directly. Producing this podcast takes time, energy, caffeine, and no small amount of courage. I create every episode independently, without a production team or external support, and whilst I am loving doing it, there are real costs involved in keeping it going. From hosting platforms and equipment, to editing software and script writing time, it's all adding up, far more than I initially anticipated. I completely understand that times are challenging for so many people right now, and support is never expected. However, if you are enjoying the show and would like to help me continue growing this little dream, you can do so by buying me a virtual coffee. If you would like to make a contribution, please visit www.buymeacoffee.com/Fareham Florist Pod. Every single contribution, no matter how small, will genuinely make a difference. I'm incredibly grateful for your support already as it is, whether that's through listening, sharing the pod, or helping me financially. Thank you for being here. Okay, back to the show. Those of you who have listened to my first 4 episodes will notice I've made a few changes. I've received some really good feedback with ideas on how I could improve things. I've also received some quite nasty messages too. As a result, I've shaken things up a little bit. I've made some changes which hopefully will improve the show overall. Before I regale you with today's episode, which is titled Ants, yep, those little black creatures with lots of legs, I would like to give a shout out to a few special people I'd like to say a big thank you to. Firstly, there is Clive. He's my business partner, the man who keeps the wheels running for me. He's been there in the darkest of days and occasionally praised me on the light ones, not often. He's helped me keep the shop going and make it what it is today, a very successful business. So thank you, Clive. I'd also like to send a thank you and a little bit of love over to Sam. She owns What's the Occasion, a lovely little card and gift shop in Highlands Road, still in Fareham, literally across the road from me. Since she took over What's the Occasion, her first little business, her support of me and my shop has been invaluable. She understands what it's like to be a lone woman working in a shop where we're surrounded by a lot of takeaways, barbers and vape shops. So I'm sure you can picture the scene. She's been there for me. She's lovely. And her little shop is wonderful and a real compliment to the local area. So if you want a nice little gift for someone or a lovely card and you're in Fareham, pop up to Highlands Road and visit her. And if she hasn't got it, I'm pretty sure she'll be able to get it for you. Thanks, Sam. I love having a fellow female business owner in the area who understands the trials and tribulations that we have to face. Now, let's get on with today's episode, which is something of a time capsule. A trip back to the era before modern convenience sneaked its way into floristry and made certain tasks, well, a bit easier. It has also removed a bit of the grit that made the old school way feel weirdly heroic. This episode was inspired by a moment earlier this week when I had someone in the shop helping me. Bless her innocent soul. She looked at me with despair in her eyes and said, "I hate this. I can't get the pins to go in properly." I swear, in that moment, the world blurred around me. Suddenly, I wasn't standing at my lovely little workbench, surrounded by foam bases and some really nice ribbons. I was catapulted back to the beginning, to my own apprenticeship, to the days when moss came with live inhabitants, when bouquet armatures were weapons, and when pain tolerance was considered a professional skill. Today, I'm taking you back there with me. Back to the days of ribboning, wiring, mossing, near fatal encounters with red ants, and the kind of floristry that built character, usually by drawing blood. What is ribboning, I can hear some of you asking. It sounds pretty, doesn't it? Delicate, graceful, the sort of thing you'd imagine doing with soft lighting, a gentle playlist, and serene concentration. No. Ribboning is actually deceptively complicated. It's a finger-stabbing job of attaching pleated poly ribbon around the edge of a funeral tribute, using 1.5-inch metal pins that exist purely to test your patience and resilience. The person in the shop with me approached the task with all the confidence of someone who believed this was like scrapbooking. She positioned her piece of ribbon, picked up a pin, tried to push that pin through the ribbon into the foam, and immediately recoiled as if the foam had insulted her ancestors. "Why won't it go in?" she cried. "Oh," I said entirely too calmly. "Welcome to a day of training." The ribbon invention I taught her was still the one I use. Ribbon into a dry foam base. Always dry. Why? Because if it's soaked, your pins will slide around like a drunk on ice. Dry foam gives you structure, resistance, and predictability. However, dry foam can also crumble. It can crackle. Occasionally it fights back, so there is always a trade-off. I explained all this to her, but the only part she retained was, "I can't do it." I tried to encourage her by sharing a bit, mind you, of what floristry was like before we had foam as standard. She blinked at me in confusion. "What do you mean, before foam?" Oh, my dear sweet summer child. Her disbelief grew wider with every sentence that I shared with her. When I told her that bouquet holders didn't used to come with a plastic cage, she looked shocked. When I told her we wired hundreds of flowers by hand, often for hours, there was horror on her face. Then when I told her about moss bases, she physically recoiled as though the moss itself had appeared behind her. The ribboning continued, her struggle continued, and before long she was muttering, "I swear this foam hates me. It's personal." I had to laugh. I remember thinking that once upon a time. Now, for anyone listening who has joined floristry after the era of Oasis foam became industry standard, brace yourself. Because the origins of funeral work and wedding bouquets were not for the faint-hearted. Forget foam, forget plastic frames, forget ergonomic tools. Back then, we used moss. Actual moss. From the ground. It was stuffed onto and into wire frames, which were so jagged they could have doubled as medieval torture devices. I remember being shown my first heart-shaped frame during my apprenticeship. I thought to myself, "Oh wow, how lovely." My second thought, about a minute after touching it, was, "Oh wow, I need to check I'm up to date on my tetanus." When you think of moss, you think of it being soft and fluffy. The decorative moss that people buy in tidy little bags at craft shops. The moss back then came in for suppliers in great, heavy, damp sacks that felt like you were hauling around small, disapproving woodland creatures. Often, you'd find one. My boss would plop this giant sack onto the floor and announce, "Right, you're mossing up today." This meant stuffing the wire frame with moss so tightly that it held moisture, weight, and flowers. Moss, though, it doesn't want to be contained. It will fight you. It will resist you. It won't do what you want it to do. After the stuffing the frame, the real challenges begin. The wiring. Every single flower had to be individually wired and taped. Hundreds of them. One by one. Your hands, they would ache in places you didn't know muscles existed. This wiring process shaped my early floristry life. It was repetitive, it was meticulous, it was brutal on your hands and wrists. You didn't dare complain though, not back then. Our boss had this philosophy. If it doesn't hurt, you're not doing it right. They also had a friend, a mysterious friend, yes, I've put that in inverted commas, who supplied wire frames at a discount. These cheaper frames had really jagged edges. They were warped, twisted, uneven. Occasionally there were lumps of rust on them. I questioned my career choice quite often. I remember going home after my first full mossing shift, rolling up my sleeves and realising I looked like I'd been dragged through a thorn bush backwards. My arms were a constellation of scratches. There was a lot of blood. Did I complain the next day when I was asked to do some more? Of course not. Iodine was my boss's answer. A bottle of burning liquid that was, in our workshop, used more liberally than actual water. Pour it on, grit your teeth, carry on. The lady working with me this week, she nearly fainted when I mentioned iodine. I didn't have the heart to tell her that most days, pouring iodine onto your hands hurt more than the wounds themselves. Now, let's talk about the real joy of moss. The living creatures that considered it their forever home. Summer moss? Ants. Teeming. A crawling ecosystem of things that should never, ever be near a florist. Picture this. You reach into a large sack of moss. It feels damp, earthy, slightly stringy. You grab a handful. Suddenly, there's movement. Ants. Red ants. Thousands of them. Little buggers that will bite you at any opportunity. And then there's the eggs. They're everywhere. You are dealing with a writhing little mound of nature's anxiety triggers. But what when it's not ants? Because sometimes it would be woodlice. Or spiders. Spiders so big that I would run screaming. Don't even get me started when I put my hand in one day and pulled out a clump of earwigs. Spiders and earwigs are my personal nemesis. I absolutely despise them. They would appear mid-mossing, dangling like threads, little creatures who thought they owned the place. I didn't have time to be delicate. I was always under pressure, sometimes working late into the night. Every new creepy crawly appearance resulted in my shrieking, occasionally my swearing, and a lot of other staff scattering like pigeons at a firework display. It was awful. I would go home covered in bites. Add those to the scratches? Yeah, floristry was delightful back then. Winter moss came with other challenges. It would be frozen. You'd put your hand into the bag and it was like trying to shape snowballs made out of concrete. My fingers would go numb. I kept my nails short because there was no point even trying to grow them. My breath would hang in the air as I was trying to force frozen clumps into wire frames, which were cutting me. And because it was cold, because 9 times out of 10 I was working outside, I couldn't feel that I'd cut myself. I would only know when suddenly I would see blood pouring everywhere. The lady I had in the shop, she listened to all this in absolute silence, her eyes widening. When I reached the part about the time the spider crawled across my moss base, mid-funeral tributes, and nearly launched the entire arrangement across the workshop, she whispered, "Oh my goodness, I would have quit immediately." Honestly, many did. I think of all the girls I trained at college with, I'm the only one who is still doing the job. Floristry back then, it wasn't something you just tried for fun. It was something you survived. Because I've survived it, those earlier days, they became part of who I am now, though. Meticulous, stubborn, and weirdly nostalgic for the madness of moss. Back to the lady in the shop. Her biggest complaint was the pins. Bent pins, pins that refused to enter the foam, pins that appeared to have a sense of humour. The blunt pin. How frustrating that is when you go to push a pin in and it doesn't have the point on the end is beyond comprehension. That can munch up a whole piece of ribbon so you have to start again. I explained to her, though, as gently as possible, that the foam base wasn't the enemy. I simply had to teach her the art of patience. I showed her how to hold the ribbon taut, how to angle the pin, how to push down firmly but not too firmly, how to keep the pleats even. She tried. She tried again. After the 7th attempt, she dropped herself into my desk chair and said, "This is impossible. How did you ever learn to do this?" As I think you will appreciate, I learned by suffering, by bleeding a bit, actually bleeding quite a lot, by crying often, by repeating tasks until muscle memory formed. I did it by being yelled at, corrected, guided, sometimes forgiven. Ribboning funeral tributes isn't about just decorating an edge. It's about structure. The wires underneath carry the flowers. The pleated ribbon holds the tension. The pins evenly placed help everything to stay in place and stable. Through this ritual, thousands of pins, ants, spiders, earwigs, I began to understand floristry not as a decoration, but as engineering. The lady with me then said, "I thought it was just making things pretty." Oh, my dear, if only. The truth is, floristry is beautiful, but it's also brutal. It's emotional labour, it's physical labour, occasionally psychological warfare with foam that crumbles at the worst possible moment. Those early moss and wire years, they shaped me. They taught me grit, precision, patience. They taught me creativity under pressure. Resilience that translated into every flower I touch, even to this day. I wanted this lady to understand that her frustrations she felt were not failures. They were a rite of passage. Every florist before her, every skilled, seasoned florist, has dealt with blunt pins, mispleated ribbon, wiring a flower wrong, stabbing themselves with the pin, and panicked over collapsing moss. Mistakes aren't the enemy, they're the path. Somewhere during the day I saw her shoulders begin to relax, her breathing steady, her hands became a little bit more sure. She wasn't perfect, she was never going to be just after one day. What she began to realise, though, is that the history of floristry is carried in the hands of every person who picks up a piece of ribbon or a pin. She's decided she doesn't want to go and continue with floristry studies now. It's a little bit harder than she thought it would be. And that's fine, because she tried. And you learn nothing without trying. When you've had spiders fall on your face during mossing, when you've wired 200 carnations and taped your fingers together, when you've bled onto your workbench and begged the universe to stop testing you, you do learn to laugh. Not disrespectfully, but with the understanding that floristry isn't meant to be pristine. It's messy, unpredictable, beautifully imperfect, deeply human. That's what I wanted her to see, that even in the chaos, there's purpose. In the pain, there's pride. In the madness, there's community. This brings me to the end of today's trip through floristry's slightly unhinged history. If you've ever wrestled with foam, moss, mud, ribbon, wire, or a spider with a death wish, congratulations. You're one of us. You're a florist. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's for the brave, the patient, the creative, and the wonderfully stubborn souls who somehow find joy between the thorns. In the same way that fashion comes in and out over the years, floristry is having a bit of a revival period. A lot more people are now starting to use moss again. But it's different than it was back in the 80s and earlier. These days, it's all sourced ethically. It's clean. You're not going to put your hand in and grab a whole twig that's covered in sharp thorns. And that's good. I like it. I use it at Christmas when I'm mossing up wreaths. Learning what I learnt back then has really helped me as the florist I am now. And I hope that moving forward, new trainees who want to do this job, because it is a wonderful job, will learn the skills that I learned. I only hope one day they do find an ant, just so they know what it was like for us. Thank you for joining me on this journey back in time. You've been listening to Fareham Florist Pod, and I'm reminding you, keep your ribbons pleated, your moss tight, your humour intact. Your sanity, though, that's optional. If you have enjoyed this episode, and I really hope that you have, please feel free to share, subscribe, and leave a review wherever you get your podcast. This can make a really huge difference and helps others to find us. I appreciate all feedback, good and bad, but if leaving negative feedback, please keep it constructive and be kind. I'm a florist after all.
Wait, there's more. Ba-da-da-da-da-dum. Ba-dum. Ba-da-da-da-da-dum.
You can also find us and share with everyone on the usual social media sites: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and any others which may pop up in between. Just look for Fareham Florist Pod. Please feel free to contact me with any questions you may have regarding any of the tales and or experiences that I've shared, or to do with just being a general working florist. You can reach me via email. The address is queries@farehamfloristpod.co.uk. Are you a florist with your own stories, your own experiences, that you would like me to share for you? If you are, I would love to hear from you. You can reach me via email. The address for that is experience@farehamfloristpod.co.uk, or drop me a WhatsApp on 073 671 87685. Let me know if you would like me to keep you anonymous. If you would like me to give your business a mention, whether you run a florist, butcher, baker, or even a candlestick maker, I am more than happy to do so, providing your business is registered and trading legally. As a thank you for putting your details out there, and hopefully generating some new business for you, it would be appreciated if you would be kind enough to make a donation to one of our nominated charities. These can be found on the webpage www.farehamfloristpod.co.uk.
That's it for today, where the petals gently sway. Thanks for sharing in the story and for your time with me today. Until next time when our paths will cross again.